Alright guys, so today we're here to check out the brand new Moondrop Para full-size planar magnetic headphones. Now, Moondrop is one of my favorite companies when it comes to IEMs, and when it comes to headphones, they've had some really impressive models, and they've also had some that haven't been so impressive. But with this pair coming in at $299 and being a pair that has those 100mm full-size planar magnetic drivers and also what they call FDT diaphragms, it's basically using the full diameter of the ear cups. It's utilizing as much space as it can to give you a much better range than some of the other planar magnetic headphones that usually use that coil design that kind of resembles like a snake. So it's covering a lot more of the space inside the ear cups. So we'll talk about how that affects sound quality, and even in comparison to the Moondrop Venus, which is the $599 pair of planar magnetic headphones, there are some similarities, but there's also quite a bit of differences as well. So we'll talk about all of that. Now, as far as what all comes inside the box, it does come with a braided fabric 3.5mm cable. That is what you use to plug into pretty much any device that has a normal headphone jack. And then it also uses 3.5mm to plug into the actual headphones, where the Venus was using a balanced cable, which is much different than these. They've also included a 1/4" adapter, so if you're using an amp or a home theater that uses this plug-in, it's nice that they've included this adapter inside the box. And moving over to the build quality and the design, most full-size planar magnetic headphones have this really large look to it. So the Paras definitely check that box. It is not a small pair of headphones. It's not really what I would consider portable because it does have that open back design, which really means anything that you're listening to, pretty much anybody around you is going to hear every detail of it. So I would even say that it's a pair that's mainly made to be used in a room by yourself. Because if I were to use these in the living room and my kids or my wife are around, again, they're going to hear everything that I'm listening to. This plays into opening up the sound a lot more than, closed back headphones. So if you've never experienced open back headphones, it's definitely something different, but it kind of limits you to where you can use these. Now, the headband does have a large look to it, but the actual part that touches your head is a leather like suspension type of headband. It's extremely comfortable, even though these do have a little bit of weight to them because the build quality of the headphones themselves, it's basically like an all metal build. I mean, it definitely feels like it can take a beating. But again, this is typical of most planar magnetic headphones. Now, the ear pads is a pleather ear pad that has suede on the actual part that touches your skin. This is allowing you to not get as hot as you would if the ear pad was just completely leather or pleather. It breathes a little bit more and it's a lot softer on your skin. So it's a very comfortable pair, and there's plenty of depth in the ear pads that I didn't feel like my ears were touching the inside. And I had no issues when it came to comfort at all. Now, as far as like some of the technical specs, it does have a high sensitivity level of 101 decibels with a low impedance of 18 ohms, which to kind of sum that up, it means it doesn't take a whole lot to power these, where you can still get a decent amount of volume. So if I were to plug these into my laptop or my phone using just the regular 3.5mm plug-in without any kind of amp, I was getting a decent amount of volume, and I didn't feel like it was taking anything away from the bass, the mids, and the treble. But I'm still going to say, to really get the most out of these, and I'm going to say this every time, I always recommend using even just a small DAC. Like I was using the Moondrop Moon River 2 Ti, which is something you could pretty much keep in your pocket. And that elevates the volume quite a bit. These can get quite loud just simply by using this. And you're going to get more out of the low end. You're going to get more details out of the mids and the treble. So, again, I definitely recommend using the amp. But let's go ahead and jump right into talking about the sound that these do have. Now, they're not going to be a bass heavy pair. It's not going to give you that subwoofer type bass, but I was still quite surprised. I was going into these kind of still expecting something a little bit closer to a flat or reference style sound. And that's not what I got. I still got a very punchy bass, but it's much quicker than a lot of the other headphones that I test. So it's kind of like hitting you and it's moving on very quickly. And the benefit to that is listening to genres like metal or rock or anything where there's just so much going on. that it never felt like, the drums were kind of hanging around or rolling over the mids and the treble, because no matter what, mids always sounded up front. Like, vocalists sound like they're right there in front of you. There's a lot of detail in vocalists. There's an extreme amount of detail when it comes to acoustic instruments, especially acoustic guitars. You're hearing a lot of details in that. And treble on these can get quite bright if you're going to listen to these fairly loud. But I do like this. I feel like I'm getting more out of my details. I don't feel like it had that sibilant sound to it where the S's are like piercing my ears. So again, they found a way to kind of tone it down just enough where it wasn't like overly bright. It just kind of mixed well with the fact that the bass did have some punch to it. And it being so quick, it just felt like I was catching a lot of details while I was using these. Now, the one thing that did surprise me about this pair is the soundstage and the sound imaging. Because they're an open back pair, I kind of expected these to sound like extremely wide open, like I was in a concert hall, because usually that's my experience when it comes to open back headphones. But what these sounded like was I was in a large room, not a concert hall, so it did have plenty of space to it. It just didn't sound extremely open. But I definitely had no issue with being able to tell where sounds were coming from. So, really to kind of explain it is, it's like on the lesser end of open back headphones when it comes to the space, but it's at the higher end if it were a pair of closed back. So it's like right there in the middle. So it found a good mix here without, it sounding extremely wide open or sounding narrow. It definitely did not make me feel like I was in a broom closet. So my overall opinion on these is I think they're a hell of a bargain at $299. You're going to hear a lot of details. Do keep in mind, this isn't going to be a pair that you're going to be able to use in a bunch of situations. You're kind of just left stuck listening to them like in your house, and even more specific than that, you're kind of stuck listening to them in a single room. And if you know that going in and you know what to expect out of these, you're getting so much out of the sound quality, and it's elevating it even more, obviously if you have an amp, but it is nice to know that you don't have to. So if you're going to just, break out the Steam Deck or the Asus ROG Ally, some like handheld device, just being able to plug it in without having any kind of extra equipment, it just adds so much more than what you're going to get, with a gaming headset or with a closed back pair of headphones. Being able to game with these and having that amount of space and that amount of detail, it's extremely good for gaming, but it's incredible with music. So it's definitely one of those you can use for everything. I highly recommend them for pretty much anything you would use them for, as long as you're not going outdoors. But guys, that's my video on the Moondrop Para full-size planar magnetic headphones. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.